I welcome you to this special webinar about accessibility testing with QF Test. About us, my name is Daniel Ried. I'm a junior software developer at Quality First Software. And my co-moderator, who will be keeping an eye on the chat during the event, is Sophia Leventhal. She's a software developer. We are both involved in the accessibility testing project of Quality First Software. So we are implementing the accessibility testing features that I am presenting to you today. Let's have a short look at our agenda. I'll start with the basics concerning accessibility, and it's about about accessibility, about laws. Then I'll give a short overview about QF Test and the features we've implemented regarding accessibility testing. We follow this up with a live demo. This will probably be the largest part of this webinar. Then I have some notes, some FAQs. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about shortly before we enter the question section, where I'll answer all the questions that remained unanswered during this webinar. Let's start with the basics. We are talking about web accessibility. Well, accessibility is about removing barriers for people with disabilities everywhere. So when we started talking about accessibility, it was in the context of everyday life, like public transportations, and but the focus of this kind of shifted towards the digital world as our technology kept advancing and work and hobbies and everything is moving to the internet, to the web. So accessibility today also includes web accessibility. The W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, defines web accessibility that this way. They say, despite a disability, everyone should be able to perceive, to understand, to navigate, and to interact with the web. There are multiple possible disabilities and restrictions that can affect you and your ability to, interact with the web. I think the one we put the most focus on is our visual disabilities. These include color blindness, bad sight, but also blindness. And I think the main tool people with visual disabilities can use to still interact with the internet are screen readers. You might have heard of them. I've put the icons of some in here. They are also already included in operating system like iOS. I think this one is from Apple. This one's from Microsoft for Windows, and this one's for Android. But there are also other programs like JAWS or NVDA that help blind people or people with visual impairments interacting with with the digital world, with the internet, with software. If you want to try screen readers for yourself, I recommend NVDA because it's free and really good, and you can actually use it to understand how people use screen readers, what challenges they are faced with. One thing you can do, you have to do basically, is to offer information not only via graphics and images, but also with text alternatives. And there are other disabilities like, if you're hard of hearing or entirely deaf, you might have problems with multimedia content, and you as a developer have to provide subtitles or maybe even a sign language interpreter. Cognitive disabilities, people with some sort of cognitive disability often struggle if content isn't presented or structured well, or if controls are not intuitive. And physical disabilities often lead to problems with control movements and control elements. Think of drag and drop operations with the mouse, or maybe complicated movements on a touch screen, like zoom or pinch movements. A good example is Google Maps, because of course you can zoom with the zoom motion or the pinch motion. But for people that are not able to do these movements, they added a zoom button, so they only have to do one click to get the same result. One thing to mention is that disabilities or restrictions, they can also be age-related or just temporary. Like a broken arm can lead to problems with control movements, or like a surgery can make you unable to see correctly for like a week or two. And yeah, all these disabilities can affect basically everyone. Why should we make websites or content accessible? Well, there are multiple approaches. Of course, the humanistic approach. We want everyone to be able to participate. Obviously, because the more we are, the merrier, and we lose a lot of potential if we don't include everyone, or we can lose some potential. So there's that. You can also look at it from an economic point of view. If you reach more people, you reach more potential customers. You can, sell more. You can make a bigger profit. There's also a big point, actually, many people are not thinking about. It's user experience, because accessible websites or software are usually more user-friendly. There are multiple studies that show accessibility goes hand in hand with better navigation, better controls, and all in all, a better site. And of course, in the end, there's also the law. A very big point here in Europe, because of a deadline coming up soon. I'm going to talk about right now. Wait, in 1 minute. So we have to follow the law. If we don't follow the laws and make accessible websites, we can get punished. We can, we have to pay, or maybe we get even bigger punishments. More about that later. Well, big reason for this webinar and for our feature, why we started implementing it, is a law from the European Union. So we are a German company. So we are part of the European Union, and I think many of you also have business contacts to the European Union. So this law might affect you as well. And I'm going to talk about the European Accessibility Act, and also shortly about the German implementation of it. I talked about it more extensively in the German webinar, but in this one I will just glance over it, I think. Well, the European Accessibility Act implements resolutions of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, where the United Nations came together and concluded that they had to improve the lives of people with disabilities and make everything more accessible, and especially products and services. And products and services have to be accessible. That means also that online or digital products and services have to be more accessible, and these things were included and in this law. And so the European Accessibility Act also includes web accessibility. The EAA, the European Accessibility Act, is an EU directive, so it must be transposed into national laws by member states. Every member state of the EU made their own national law with the EAA as the basis, as far as I know. And the German law is the BFSG, the Barrierefreiheitsstärkungsgesetz. That's the German way. We just take a lot of nouns and put them in one long string, and that's how we make words. It basically means a law to strengthen accessibility. And like every other law of a EU member state, it goes into effect on the end of June, like end of next month. So of course, there's a lot of interest in accessibility at the moment. It concerns private economic operators, excluding small companies, like companies with less than 10 employees and less than 2 million of profit in a year. And it's valid for digital products and services for consumers. So basically business to consumers relationships. If you're doing strictly business to business offers, it will not apply, but as soon as you have consumers, or if you're doing business with the government, for example, these accessibility laws will apply. So yeah, if you're selling something, basically you have to be accessible. It concerns the sale, the purchases, the sales or the purchase of goods and services, and basically every business website in Germany with digital communication tools like a contact form or something has to be accessible if they are trying to make business, if they are a B2C website, if they try to make business with consumers. But of course, purely informative websites or business-to-business offers are not obligated to be accessible. There's a fun little website you can use to check if you would, if your company has to follow the BFSG. But you can take the concepts of the BFSG and basically apply them to most other EU member states, because they all relate to the European Accessibility Act and have the same or mostly the same requirements. Of course, other countries have accessibility acts as well, like the ADA, the Americans with Disability Acts, which applies to basically everything. They apply to the public sector, but also to private businesses. And they have different requirements. Well, let's say they have no requirements. They recommend standards. If we're talking about web accessibility, they say you have to follow either this standard or the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And funnily enough, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, I'm sorry, they are also the basis of the EAA and therefore the BFSG. So this is how we make accessibility measurable. So this is the definition of web accessibility. What does your website or your operating system have to fulfill to be accessible? Well, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. I'm going to take a quick look at them. So these are the guidelines. As you can see, there's four categories. The first set of guidelines concerns the perceivability of your content. Content has to be seen, has to be able to be perceived by your customer. Then it's about being operable. Your customer has to be able to navigate through the site and everything concerning this. Your content has to be understandable. This also doesn't just concern the content, it also concerns the way you interact with the website, like navigation and stuff. And there's the category robustness, which is about mostly compatibility with also other technologies. So if we take a look at a specific rule, like this is a very easy to understand rule. It's about color contrast. We can see how our guideline, how our rule is structured. They have a title, which shortly describes what this rule is about, and there's a description. In this case, this rule just says you have to have a certain level of contrast between text and background, so that people who have bad eyesight or are maybe colorblind or something can still see your text and get the information from this text. There's always some things that are excluded below, and then there's this little level rating, which is very important because there are 3 different levels. There's level A, high priority rules. Without them being fulfilled, it might be possible that a user cannot interact with your site or your software at all. Then there's medium priority rules, level AA, which are of course also important, but not as critical as the level A rules. And there's AAA rules, which go above and beyond to make your website more accessible even than the law requires, because the law, at least in the European Union, requires you to just fulfill rules of level A and AA. So if you look at the WCAG, your website has to fulfill level A and AA if you're doing business in the European Union. Well, these guidelines are the thing that defines whether your website is accessible or not. So we have to sort of check these guidelines. And well, for this, we developed something at QFTest. I'm going to start with a short overview about QFTest. I think most of you know QFTest already. But just in case you don't, we're doing automatic UI tests. We have multiple ways to simulate user interactions, and you can also record your own interaction and replay them, and build very big test systems that you can automatically run whenever you want, and find errors in your user interface if you want to. We support multiple technologies, and especially today we are talking about web applications. And to test accessibility with QFTest, we have, let's say, 2 different ways. The first way we implemented accessibility tests is by using an already existing accessibility testing library named X or Xcore. That's an open source accessibility testing library. That's their GitHub page if you want to look at it. It's a very famous library. Actually, some of the developers of X are also working on the web content accessibility guidelines. Yeah, so you know they are very experienced and very deep in the accessibility testing theme subject. And we integrated this library in QFTest. We made it better. We made better logging, better reports that are visually more attractive and way easier to understand than the JSON result you get back if you just use the Xcore library. And also they are way easier to control than the Xcore library itself. And the other way we implement accessibility testing features is by using QFTest features. And for a start, we used it for a single procedure, which checks color contrast of graphics. X can already check color contrast of like text, but X only checks the HTML and has no options to check like images of text or icons or basically everything that's an image or a JPEG, a PNG, an SVG, SVG. So these things are these are things we can check with QF test, with the options of QF test to make screenshots and everything. So we implemented this, and we are also currently working on further checks that we want to provide to you, that you can simply use, and well, that help improve the accessibility of your website. Well, I think it's best if I just show you. So to use these features, you'll need QF test version 9.0 or higher. I'm using 9.03. And you need either a license for a web engine, or you can just try them with a free license for, I think, 2 weeks, and just try the features for yourself, and maybe then buy the entire license. Okay, so this is vanilla QF test. And the question is now, how do I get to the accessibility testing features? I think the quickest way is just by using the Quick Start wizard. It's this little wand here. Just press it, and there we go. The third entrance already is about accessibility checks. So here we can check a web application for its accessibility. We're going to click next here. And here we have to define which URL, which website we are trying to test for accessibility. I'm going to use a demo website with intentional accessibility errors. It's made by the developers of Xcore, just so you know. And there we go. We can use which accessibility modules we are testing. We can either do the X tests, or we can do, well, the color contrast check we implemented, and there will be more modules in the future, of course. But for a start, we're just looking at the X tests, and this is the first thing that probably really requires explanation. X tests are based on X, and X works in a certain way. They have a list of X rules, and let's have a look at those X rules. Just a second. There we go. A rule is defined by a rule ID. And this rule ID is one of the things you can enter, like here, right? If you enter a rule ID, for example, or we looked at the color contrast web accessibility content guideline. So let's jump to the color contrast rule. If you were to just enter color contrast, you would do all the text color contrast checks of X, which checks if the color contrast for text is fulfilled. There's an impact rating here in the middle. In this case, the impact rating just means how serious the impact is on the user with a disability. But no matter the rating, even if it's minor, you have to still make sure that this error is not present in your website anymore in the end. So just aim to fix every accessibility error, but you can use this impact rating for prioritization. And also there are tags. Like those tags are kind of they are another way you can define what to check. Like if you look here, this is the default value. For a default, you are checking every rule of level A and AA of the WCAG. And here you can see in which category this one falls. This is a AA rule. So it's still required by EU law. This is a very, very helpful site. You can also click on these rules and get a better descriptions. So if you want, just Google the X rules and you can have a look at them, what they do, how they are implemented, how they work. Yeah. So where we could use the default value and do all the WCAG checks, can do the advanced WCAG checks that are not required by laws, or to keep it simple, we just start with the color contrast of texts. So we choose this entrance. The rest of this is just specifying the browser, the connection mode. This is not specific to accessibility testing, so I'm just gonna skip it. I'm gonna click finish. And yes, I'm gonna pull this up here. There we go. We have our first accessibility test. As you can see, there's a setup node. The setup node, let's just execute it. It's gonna start the page we are going to test, and yeah, basically it's the entire setup for our system under test. There it goes. And yes, this is our website with intentional accessibility errors. Just in case you're wondering, this ally or A11Y, this is a shortcut, an abbreviation for accessibility. You might face this subject if you're accessibility testing. Yes. Okay. And this is the test case we created. Let's have a look at it. It's simply a procedure call of our X procedure, which does the accessibility tests fully automatically. If we take a look at these parameters, if we look at the rules, just like we defined, we're just checking color contrast of texts. And the scope of the check is the entire page. Generic document means we are checking the entire page for color contrast errors in this case. And yeah, well, let's just run it and see the results. As you can see here in the terminal, we've added some logging so you can see that it's working. And now it is taking screenshots because apparently it found some errors as we expected. So we're gonna go and look at the run log. And then for simplicity's sake, we are just going to find the next error by pressing Control-N or clicking this button up here. And yes, this is what we are seeing. So let's start from the top. If we look at this information, we can see that there are 4 errors in this scope. So the total amount of errors we have is 4. If we look at the overview screenshot, you can see exactly where the color contrast check found errors. We marked them with a red border. Errors will have red borders. Elements that have errors will have red borders, so you can quickly find them. And there are also screenshots for every single element with an error, just so you have a quick overview and can find them at a glance. But I think the most interesting thing is this error message. And let's just go through it from the top. So we have an ally or accessibility check error regarding the rule color contrast. The impact is serious. I think that's the second highest. So if you have multiple errors, you should prioritize this one pretty high. And then we have an overview over the faulty elements. There's always the URL of the site where the element is located, but these next 2 identifiers are actually, I think, the most important thing, because they help us find the element. Even if we can't find it by the picture, we can always find it with these with the XPath or the CSS selector. How? Well, let me show you. I'm just gonna open the developer tools. And yeah, these are the developer tools. Just press F12 or any other button combination. This will open the developer tools. And then you have access to the document. And now if I just copy this XPath and I'm pressing Control and F to open the search, you can see find by string, find by selector, or by XPath. So if I just enter the XPath here, we can see the element in the document we can find it very quickly. Or it also works with the selector, with the CSS selector. So if I just copy this one and enter it here, you can see we jump to the other error, which is this element right here, because light green on a white background appears to not fulfill the color contrast, the minimal color contrast that is required. In the end of these error messages, there's also always, the actual message. And it usually says what went wrong and often gives tips how to, remove this error. So in this case, we can see the color between the contrast between the foreground color in hexadecimal notation. This is light green, and the background color, this is white. This color contrast between those two colors is not enough. We need at least 4.5 to 1. So, well, for demonstration purposes, let's just make it so the color contrast is sufficient. I'm gonna change the color of this text right here. Let's just make it black because, black on white is basically the best color contrast you can have. And as you can see, this text is now black, and let's just do exactly the same test again and see if the errors persist. They should not, but yeah. Okay, and as you can see, it was very quick this time because it did not have to take any screenshots, and it finished with no errors. Well, as you can see, no errors here in this run log, but this is not, this is not enough information. Maybe we failed to find any elements or the test does not work. So I'm gonna change a parameter here so we can see even the successful checks. And fittingly, this parameter is called show successful checks. I'm just gonna change this one here to true and run the procedure again. And it's running, it finished to perform the checks and it had no errors. But if we look at the run log now, we can see that even these successful checks are listed as an information message. And if we go down a little bit, we can find our 4 elements which were faulty before. Like these ones, these are the text that says beginner. It was green on white before, which was not enough of a color contrast. But if we look at it now, we can see that it has a sufficient color contrast of 21. And actually 21 is the highest color contrast you can have, white on black. So yeah, we found an accessibility error. And we managed to fix that accessibility error. Okay, so let's find more. I'm just going to refresh the site. This will remove the manipulations I did here. And I'm going to test for another rule. So because I've obviously looked at the site before, I know that there's another rule that will find some errors. So I'm going to just enter it. This is the rule ID image alt, which just checks if images have a descriptive alternative text, because, well, a blind user will not be able to get any information from an image if it's not, well, described by some sort of text. So we are now checking color contrast as well as the alternative text of images if they are present. And let's just run this and see what happens. Okay, so he's taking screenshots for the run log. So we have some accessibility errors. And yeah, actually it's pretty slow for some reason. Okay, it worked out in the end. It's the live demo factor. So let's jump into the run log and see what we found. As you can see, there's 2 errors now. And the first group of errors, one more thing to mention, maybe you can see there's 4 elements that have errors, but there's only 1 errors logged for them. That's because we squash, currently we squash all the same errors into one message. This is also a parameter you can change if you like to, but it makes the protocols more, well, you have a better overview over them pretty quickly. So let's go through this run log from the top. You can see we have 12 elements with X errors. This time, 8 of them have a critical impact, which means they should be probably fixed first. And then we have our 4 color contrast elements which have a serious impact rating. Now, if we look at the overview screenshot, we can see that all the images are, well, they have a red border, probably because they are missing an alternative text to describe them. This is our color contrast error, which we already looked at. And now this is our alternative image text error. So we can see there's a lot of elements here, in total 8, which have this error. And if we look down, we can see that we have an error message with a fix. So this is these are the actions you can undertake to resolve these errors, like adding an area label that describes the image, or adding a title to this image. If you do this, you can fix your accessibility errors. And well, each of these elements has a screenshot. You can also change this in the parameters, more on that later. And yeah, because we still have show successful checks on true, we see the successful image alt and color contrast checks here in the run log as well. So not everyone's working with the run log. Many people are working with reports, because you don't have to open QF test for it. You don't have to be, well, a certified QF test user or experience in the usage of QF test. And what many people use are so-called reports, which can be generated like from a batch call, or simply like this. We are in the run log. We go on the menu item file and go to create report. And this is the report generation dialog. You can see here these default settings are usually good enough, so I'm not going to change everything. Just be aware this is like we will embed these little images of the faulty elements in the report. So this is how we say how big these have to be. And we're just going to create this report and show it in the browser right now. And there we go. And now, as you can see, you get an overview of our successful and unsuccessful tests. And as you can see, these are the different errors we got. We can look at the error message, which is listed here. And we can also look at the screenshots of the faulty elements, and also the error message, which is also included right here. So these reports have all the information you need to fix these errors without you needing to use QF test yourself. So even everyone can use this information to work and resolve those errors. Okay. So this is the run log and the report. Let's just have a look at the procedure itself. By pressing Control and P, I'm just gonna jump to the procedure. It's located in our standard library. This library is included in every QF test installation, and you can use every procedure that's in here every time you want to, basically. And we are currently in the accessibility package, and if we take a look at the check X rules procedure, we see that there's a lot of parameters it sets, and these are the default parameters. So let's have a look at them. I already talked about rules. The default check checks every WCAG rule of level A and AA. So this is, let's be real, basically the setting you're always going to use. You can skip certain rules. So if I jump back to our test, which has the parameter list as well. So let's just stay here. Let's say we want to check every WCAG rule of level A and AA. But we are already sure that we don't have any color contrast errors or want to exclude it for any other way. We can simply say, hey, skip this rule, or maybe skip image order as well. Or, I don't know, skip the button name rule as well. And if you do so, you can make your test shorter if you're very certain these rules don't have to be checked. The scope is interesting. I'm going to show you how to manipulate the scope when I show you how to use the color contrast. The color contrast procedure, but basically this says what part of your page is checked. So currently it says generic document. That's the default value. That means we are checking the entire document, the entire page. But you can add a QF test ID in here, either the ID of a component or a smart ID. And if you do so, it will only check this component and all its children components. You can skip certain generic classes. This just means if QF test looks at your web page and puts all these elements in different classes, like this is probably a button, this is this is in a div, and this is probably, I don't know, this is an image tag or something. And you can say, well, I don't know, maybe don't check the image tags for the X rules. And this is a way to skip certain classes. Skip invisible elements, usually true, because elements that are not rendered visible are usually irrelevant for accessibility. But of course, you can set this to false, and we will also check invisible elements then. We already talked about show successful checks. Impossible checks are interesting. Those are logged as a warning in the run log, and it basically means the accessibility test could not be conclusively finished by X, and you have to manually review. So this is a notification. So if you get some warnings besides your errors, you should also check out the warnings, because sometimes there's a hidden error there that just can't be determined automatically. And well, basically everything below this is about logging. Yeah, it's about how many screenshots are taken, how big can they be to manage your memory usage, and also if the errors should be squashed together or maybe listed separately. Yeah. Well, these are basically the parameters you can set. I also have a short of description of the most important ones in the presentation I was showing before, and I'm going to show later again. You will have access to this presentation. We are gonna upload this one, and you can get it for yourself. We will inform you with a mail once that's the case. Okay. These are the X tests. But let's have a look at the other feature we implemented. So I'm opening the quick start wizard again, just a very fast way to get to the color contrast tests. The web page's name was, there we go. So enter this one. And now let's have a look at the color contrast test. This is, again, that's an important distinction you have to make. It's about color contrast of graphic objects, because that's a thing that X cannot test, but we can. So this is the screen that probably needs some explanations. We now have to define which elements should be checked for their color contrast. And how do we define which elements to check? Well, we define their generic class. So the class that QFTest uses to describe this element, basically. I'm just gonna say icon for start, and we are gonna change this right away once we created our test. Let's get this one up here. So there's our X test, and there's our color contrast test we just made. And as you can see, the parameters differ a little bit. Scope is still the same, but now you have no rules you enter, because this is just one rule it checks. It just checks the color contrast of graphics. Instead, you're going to define which elements you will check, and you have to say which generic class these elements are. And to find out what generic class makes sense, let's just have a look at our demo application. And let's say we want to check like the color contrast of this little icon here. So what we are doing is either by pressing clients show web UI inspector, or simply this component record button, and then right click. We are going to open the inspector, because the inspector will help us to find out which class this element is. Or for those of you who are paying very close attention, it's already listed here. This one is an IMG. So we're gonna look at it in the inspector anyway, because it's a very, very useful tool. And as we can see, this is the structure of the page from the view of QFTest. And here we can see this is an IMG, like the class is QFS class is IMG. So basically, if we want to check this icon, we have to check IMGs. So we're gonna delete icon and instead say, hey, please check IMGs. And also just one more thing, we are going to manipulate the scope. So I don't want to check every IMG on this page, because, for example, like color contrast of this image is not relevant. It's not holding any information, whereas this icon might hold some information, because it might be a control element. So it's more important that the color contrast of this icon is correct. So we are going to define a scope, so we're not checking every single image. So let's just see if we can find a suitable scope, like maybe this one. If you look at the highlight, this element, this scope right here, this includes like this icon and some text elements. So in the inspector, we have a smart ID proposal. We can just copy this smart ID. And by doing so, we copy it and then we paste it into the scope. And now this method, this procedure will just check within this simple scope. It will not check the entire page like it did before. It will just check in the scope. And you can also use this for your X checks. Yeah, you can also define a scope here, so you don't always have to check the entire document. So in this case, we are just checking this little part of the page, and we are just checking IMG classes. And yeah, well, let's just run it. And as you can see, it was very quick because it did not have to check very much. In fact, it did only check one image. And if we jump to the next error, you can see, let's go to the overview screenshot. In this case, we did only check this small scope. So the overview screenshot only includes the scope. And the error is already marked. And if we take a look at this error message, it's structured similar to the X errors. And it also says, yeah, this color contrast, light gray versus white. It's not enough. It's not enough. If you want to use this icon and it has a value for the user, please change the color, basically. Well, okay. One more thing. I'm not gonna go over it because it's not really the focus of this demo, of this webinar. But you can change the class of this icon. You can change how QF-test sees this icon, and the way you do this is if you take a look at your setup by using the custom web resolver. It's a whole thing in itself. There's a very good manual entry if you want to read up on it, but basically you can define maybe a generic class here and say, hey, these are control icons, and control icons are they are IMG tags, and maybe they are located under an H2 or something. And in this way, you can make QF-test see this icon as a special icon, and later use this as the generic class value. Okay. Well, as I said, everything is in this standard library, and you can have a look at the standard library every time at these procedures. They are also described down here, and they are also described in the manual. And I think this overview I just gave you is, should be enough to get started. And for the more specific things, there's our manual. Okay. Well, that's it with the live demo. Let's get back to the presentation. Basically, as soon as PowerPoint starts responding again, I will scroll down. These slides you did not see because during the live demo it would be kind of useless, but they include some tips and tricks. And as I said, you will get a mail. We will upload this. You can have these slides later. And let's get to the next point in the agenda. I'm sorry, my PowerPoint is really slow and it's really not responding. There we go. Some notes. So I think a very important thing or question I often heard when I was working with customers is that they ask if their site was accessible if all automatic tests ran without errors. Like they said they implemented an X test, checking all the web content accessibility guidelines of level A and AA. And they also did some color contrast checks, and all of them were fine. There were no errors found. Is the site accessible? Will it satisfy the law, the EU laws? The answer is sadly no, because you have to fulfill the entirety of the WCAG, like every level A and AA rules, and some of those rules are simply not able to be tested automatically, probably not even reliably if you're using AI. Because many of these rules, they just concern the context, the meaningfulness of stuff, and this is just something that a human has to do. Like there's even an example in this demo. Like if you look at the title of this page, there's a title. Yeah, the title is insert title here. This is a title, so X is also checking titles if a title is present. But of course, we are not checking if the title is meaningful, and insert title here is definitely not a meaningful title. So, well, yeah, this is an example for a test that's for a guideline that can't be automatically tested. And well, but it will help you in development. It will relieve some pressure from the manual experts of accessibility, because many errors can be found automatically already, but as I said, not all. Access, it finds about everything, 57% of everything that's wrong regarding the WCAG. And well, of course, we are currently developing on more accessibility features. We have some procedures we want to implement that check some guidelines that are relevant for the law, for the EU law. Like, for example, this one that checks if focus is visible, if users, they will put the focus on an element. And this is currently being developed. This is something that X, for example, can't do, or other libraries can't do, but we can, because we have, well, other options. We can take screenshots, we can simulate user interaction, and we can leverage these tools to implement more weaker checks. And this is what we are doing. What we are also doing, before I'm forgetting it, we are also trying to make these accessibility testing features available outside of the web engine, outside of web testing, because of course it's mostly important for web testing, but it's not only web pages that have to be accessible. Software directed at consumers has to be accessible as well. That includes desktop applications, and as you might know, we also support like Java Swing or JavaFX desktop applications, or native Windows applications, Electron applications. And we are currently working to make accessibility tests and available on these engines as well. Okay, then I will say thank you.